right, good afternoon, everybody. We will open the club meeting today, August 7th, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's please remain standing and acknowledge anyone in the Rotary family that we should keep in our thoughts. One Rotary member, Paul Livingston's mother-in-law, Sharon Vandevoorty, hopefully I pronounced that right, passed away last week. She was 85. Too bad to hear that. Any others that we should be keeping in our thoughts? All right, hearing none, let's just take a few moments to think about Paul. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. All right, we will do welcome and introduction of any guests today, and looks like Ann Campbell has a guest today. Ann, where are you?
Please stand. My guest is Debbie Gitchell, who is here to hear our program today. And do you know how to stand up? Many of us, of course, have known the Gitchells for years in Ames, but Debbie is particularly interested in our program because her husband, Bob, who, as we all knew, was a longtime orthopedic surgeon at McFarland Clinic, but he learned how to be an orthopedic surgeon from Dr. Ponseti, whom we are going to hear about today. So Bob worked in the lab for Dr. Ponseti, and so Debbie is interested in hearing what has happened since then.
It was incredible.
Do we have any other guests that didn't make the list? Okay. All right, John and Louie, take it away.
Guests and visitors, and we're glad you're here, and we have a welcome song sung to the tune of the Notre Dame Victory March. Please join us. Welcome to you from Ames Rotary, Novena, London, or Gapery, from far-off lands or the USA. We're glad that you are here today. Come back again whenever you're near. Join us and then we'll make it clear. Around the world you will always be welcome at Rotary.
All right. Well, we will move along and celebrate birthdays today, if we could get those up on the screen. All right. Looks like we got a few. If it's your birthday, please stand. We will not ask how old you are, but please stand if you're able and willing to stand, and we will serenade you with a little happy birthday song.
To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
All right, anniversaries next. Okay, got quite a few up there. Hopefully this is a good reminder if you forgot. It is your anniversary this month, so hopefully it wasn't during the first week. But if it's your anniversary, please stand so you can be recognized.
Happy anniversary to you.
Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, dear Rotarians.
Happy anniversary to you.
Thank you, John and Louie. All right. Next up is membership. So thank you for being a member. All the way at the top from Chuck Holes, 45 years. Louie, who was just on the piano, 25. Karen, 25. I think we owe Karen a big round of applause for all she does for our club. And down to Natalie Siebold, 2 years. So thank you for being members. Before we introduce our speaker, I would like to introduce and bring up and give him a minute to talk, Adam from Schonert's Patisserie. Did I get that right? Okay. Adam graciously put together the spread today, and he just wanted to spend a minute talking about his business. So thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you guys. I've never been to a Rotary before, and this has already been so much fun. So thanks for having us today. My name is Adam Schoner. I own Schonert's Patisserie. We're a corporate catering company here in Ames. I just graduated from Iowa State in May with my Bachelor of Food Science and Master of Business Administration. And basically, I'm really passionate about baking, food science, people, and business. And so our business, Schonert's Patisserie, basically just evolved accidentally out of our passions. And the business has been around for about 5 years. We've been doing catering for about 2 years. We're strictly business to business. We work a lot with Iowa State, the Chamber, and other corporations and names. We do breakfast, so lots of pastries and coffee, sandwiches and salads for lunch, pies and cheesecakes for dessert, charcuterie boards and feasting trays in the afternoon. And we started with food and found out there's a bigger problem with service. And so now we're really obsessed with providing really good service alongside our products. And so that's just a bit about us. Right now we operate out of an independent commercial kitchen out of our home. And so we are looking for some help. We're trying to get out of our commercial kitchen in our house into the next space. And it's been really difficult. We've been looking for about 4 months. And so right now I'm just trying to spread the word, let people know, ask for help. I'm starting to talk to hotels and churches to see if there's any commercial kitchen spaces available for a short-term option until we can find a long-term solution. So thanks for using us. I'm happy to meet you. I'm going to stay around and talk to you guys afterwards too. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. All right. Yeah, it is very good food, so proof of concept there, folks. All right, well, I will bring Katie up to the mic to introduce our guest speaker for the day.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're lucky to have Chris Knapp, who's past former district governor and also a member of the Iowa City Noon Rotary. So he was gracious enough to join us today, drive over from Iowa City, and he's gonna share with us information that we have heard before, and then with kind of extra knowledge for all of us that's so important for being a Rotarian. So please help me join in welcoming Chris Knapp.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Now the pressure's on. About this. Ignacio Ponseti was a friend of my family, of myself and my wife, and his wife, Helena, by the way, needs to be recognized. She was a great scholar of Cervantes, and she was a professor at Grinnell College. She was there because back when Ignacio joined the faculty, they had a problem with husbands and wives being on the same faculty. And so Helena found a job at Grinnell, and she drove back and forth for about 30 years teaching at Grinnell. And she wrote a definitive book on Cervantes. Ignacio, I'll just give you a background. He was born in Spain. He fled Spain during the Spanish Civil War. He went to Majorca, then he went on to South America, then he was in Mexico. And he became known around the world and for his beginning work on what has become known as Ponseti method. And Dr. Steinler, who was at the University of Iowa, who was world renowned for orthopedic surgery, invited Ignacio to come. And of course, he was a refugee still at that point. And so Ignacio came to Iowa, and he was encouraged to continue to develop his methodology in orthopedics. Yes, he was a surgeon first of all, but he became noted for the Ponseti method, which is manipulation of the foot versus surgical practice on the foot to move the foot from a club into the proper perspective so that a child can walk on the bottom of his foot versus on the side of his foot. And we're going to get into that a little bit. My presentation today is going to be trying to wrap everything up, wrap it into a program for you that works around the RAG for ClubFoot, Rotary Action Group for ClubFoot. And I know that you're familiar with RAGs because WashRag, the Water and Sanitation Rotary Action Group that you folks are very much involved in because of the Tanzania Water Project. And we have several other clubs in our district which have been involved in well projects that are involved with the WashRag. The RAG for ClubFoot was started by the Rotary Club of Iowa City AM. Herb Wilson, past district governor Herb Wilson, was a primary person behind that to get it going. John Ockenfels, past district governor, who just returned to Iowa after a flight around the world with his cousin, sponsoring and encouraging people to participate in the End Polio Now campaign. So let's get into this just a little bit here. By the way, I need to thank Tamika Peterson, who is the co-chair of the RAG for ClubFoot. She put this together, and we're still working on this. This is my first presentation with this slide, so slide deck. So we'll see what happens. Okay, the RAG for ClubFoot. This is our mission statement here: to inform, activate, connect, and engage Rotarians to create ways and means to support action for a world free of clubfoot disability. So, the purpose of a RAG is to not fund an activity, but to bring together disparate groups which have an interest in the area that the RAG is, the Rotary Action Group is focused on. We have, there's a total of 27 action groups. They have to be approved of by Rotary International. There's a rather extended process. You have to write a mission statement. You have to have a board of directors. You have to have a clear purpose. You have to have support of, I don't know, about 12 or 15 districts around the world to do it, et cetera. It's very involved, but the idea is that to make sure that if Rotary is going to have its name attached to it, that it has a focus, that it has a purpose, that it has an opportunity to change the world through service of Rotarians and the affiliate organizations that they may come into contact with. So the idea is to increase Rotary's impact, and we're going to see that. And by the way, almost every RAG relates very specifically to the Rotary Foundation. The purpose is to maybe expand the Rotary Foundation's impact by using the funding that comes out of global grants, and primarily to activate that. And of course, this is what we do with the water project here that you guys have done. I think you've probably spent almost $1 million of the Rotary Foundation money, and we still have the need for water. And of course, we are using that money in part with the Ponseti methodology. So the RAG for ClubFoot has 13 board members. We have just increased that. We are also expanding it worldwide. We have several members now who are coming on board from Europe, France, Spain. We have members out of Brazil who are on the board. The idea, again, is to make sure that, like any global project, that we don't impose, the RAD doesn't impose its will, doesn't impose its program on a country or on a district to try to do something. We ask the district to invite us in, and we work with the district to make sure that the Ponseti methodology that we're trying to do will be effective in that district within that country. So how do we reach out? We present programs like I'm doing right here. We go to district conference, and for about the past 5 years, my wife and I and the district governor-elects and nominees have been at the House of Friendships at the international conferences at the RAG for ClubFoot booth, meeting people, talking to people around the world, getting them to ask us for Zoom programs, but also while we're there, we often have, and we need to work on this more diligently, we have people come up to say, I had ClubFoot, and I was treated with the Ponseti method, and I ran track, I swam, you know, I'm a dancer, I'm in the arts because of the Ponseti method. And that is a moving thing. And those are the sort of stories that we want to start to now put them in YouTube, use it as a methodology to spread the word about the Ponseti method. So here's a child that is born with club feet. As you can see, most likely, as you can see some information here, most common musculoskeletal birth defect, approximately 1 in every 750 live births have it. It's worldwide. It does not make any difference what country you're in. It doesn't matter what social economic background you have. It doesn't matter about your nutrition. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. 1 in every 750 births comes with a club foot or both club feet. Predominantly male, over 50% are male. There are approximately 200,000 children in the world born every year with club feet. And unfortunately, we don't get to treat them all. And part of the reason is that the knowledge of what ClubFoot is, that it is treatable, the recognition of it at an early age is often missed. And I have a document here that we are thinking about, the RAG is thinking about, from Kenya. And the reason why it's from Kenya is that many of the births in Kenya are out in rural areas. They don't have physicians, they have nurses, they have nurse practitioners, and they need to have training to help them recognize ClubFoot and recognize that this child needs to be taken to a major hospital where an orthopedic surgeon can begin to work on the Ponseti method on the child. Because many times the nurse will say, well, the child will grow out of it. A child doesn't grow out of this. They need help. They need the Ponseti method. So you can see some examples up there of what they look like. These are some action videos. I'm not going to use them because I'm also missing the backup. But the one on the right, you can see how the child is walking on the sides of his feet. These children are much older than we normally have. We have teenagers. We can have people in the very late teens, and we can still have pretty effective results using the Ponseti method. But it's much better if we have them as infants. And that's because the bones are much softer, the ligaments are much more flexible at that point, and the casting is much more effective. And we'll be talking about how the casting works. But the boy on the right from Brazil, he went through the Ponseti method, and his feet almost went completely back to normal when we were done with that. And the image here is him walking down a hallway. We have an image later, about 6 months later, and he's running down the hallway on his feet. And it just brings tears to your eyes to think that we have changed this child's life. We have moved him from being a marginalized child, a marginalized citizen of his community. We have taken him out of the basement, so to speak, out of the attic, and he is now part of a viable opportunity to serve his community, to serve his family, and be of service to the world. So it's marvelous what Iowa Most, the Miles of Smiles, the Cleft Lip Cleft Palate, how that changes people's lives. The Ponseti method does the same thing. The wash rag, having water, allowing people to not have to walk 5 miles to bring water back to the village twice a day. That allows the people to actually have a life that's other than totally being a pack animal for water. So these rags that we have, the Rotary Foundation, the money that we use, that we contribute to the Rotary Foundation, how we bring it back into our communities or use it and we spread it out across the world, has a tremendous impact of changing people's lives from a disability like this, which almost makes them total dependent upon the rest of their society, to an actual viable, active, loving, caring individual in their community. So very quickly, the casting method. It really lasts about 6 weeks. Each of these numbers is cast 1 through 5. They're on for a week, then the child comes back in, recast again, and each time they're recast, the foot is manipulated just a bit more, it's stretched, and then it's cast into this new perspective. And we rotate the foot from in to out. And then at the end of that time, the child is no longer in cast, but at night they wear braces. And the braces is a little shoe on a bar that keeps their feet rotated outward rather than inward, keeps them outward at night when they sleep, so that the tendons stay stretched. Then during the day, they're out of the braces, they can run around, and hopefully they're running around, again, not on the sides of the feet, but on the flat of the foot. And they continue to wear braces for about 5 to 6 years. In fact, what's interesting is some children become so accustomed to braces that they don't want to give them up at night. They become, part of their behavior going to bed at night, having their feet, they sleep on their backs and so forth. Very interesting, but what you see in the middle picture there is the massaging of the foot, of the tendons and of the muscles and so forth, as the doctor moves it from the current position to the next position, then they cast it. And so we have an orthopedic surgeon who's involved in this, and then we have the technicians which are using the plaster and so forth and working with the doctors. And of course, the parents are right there watching, and it's just unbelievable how they can't believe the change in their child's foot and their leg and their structure. So there's the bracing there in the top picture. The bracing is now worldwide, obviously. Iowa's Gift to the World is a program that we have within the RAG for ClubFoot area, which solicits money, funds to buy the braces. They come in a set of braces. And what happens, of course, is as the child grows, the shoe has to get bigger, the brace has to get wider and so forth. And they want to use these sets over and over again. So we give an orthopedic surgeon maybe 10 sets. And as he works with each child gets a set to take home, and then we have to replenish them, they wear out, etc. But the bracing obviously is important. You can see in the top right-hand corner, the little boy wearing the brace. Sometimes they wear them, other times. You can see all ages and so forth. The Ponseti method can be used everywhere. Okay, let's get back to the 1 in 750 births has ClubFoot. We have ClubFoot here in the United States. There are people that you probably know who have ClubFoot, infant child in their family somewhere. Loring Miller's son, past District Governor Loring Miller, had a son who had ClubFoot. Okay, but you don't see it in the streets. And the reason you don't see it in the streets is because we have doctors who recognize it, or I can't think of the term right now, for obstetricians who recognize it at birth and so forth. And so they quickly get the child into the Ponseti method. But you go to Brazil, you go to Colombia, you go to Honduras, you go to Kenya, you go to Niger and so forth, where they don't have the outreach of hospitals and they don't have physicians attending all these. They don't see it necessarily, and what happens is the child doesn't get treated. But as you can see, these are children in some country somewhere who are benefiting from the Ponseti method. So, Ponseti method training, this is what the RAG has been doing here in our hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Where you see the red and where you see the stars is where we have done a Ponseti training, or we are planning on doing one. A Ponseti training is a vocational training team global grant. We send a team, usually it's 2 people, to a hospital that has been identified by the Rotary District, where they are going to bring orthopedic surgeons to that hospital for training. The team stays there for a couple of weeks, training the physicians in this methodology. The physicians work with their team and learn how to use the Ponseti method. Then in a year, we come back and we revisit that team and see how they're doing. We help them with any continuing education, any changes in methodology, just to make sure that they're on the right track of using it. So we have been, as you can see, to Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, Mexico, and so forth. The Ponseti method, by the way, is just not being taught, so to speak, or being encouraged just by the Radford ClubFoot and by the University of Iowa, Dr. Marquendi, It's just not coming out of Iowa. There are Ponseti methodologies and practices being supported by other organizations. And this is where this Kenya project is coming from, and they're asking us to possibly get involved at providing the money to train these nurse practitioners out in the rural areas of these countries in Africa. So that's just showing a casting of a model, how it's done there on the right. It's very simple. It's probably about $5 worth of materials is all it takes to do a cast. And times 6, so that's about $30 worth of materials to move a child from a club foot into a possible perfect foot. This is the casting method done and so forth. This is Dr. Marquendi down in the bottom right-hand corner working on a child. Again, you cannot believe the change that this impacts on the family. The mothers are in tears. The fathers are in tears. The child is, with the proper manipulation of the foot, the child doesn't even know what's happening to it. And we're changing their lives. So how do we, Rotarians, how do we become engaged in this whole process? So I need to back out for just a few moments. I'm here to talk about not only the Radford ClubFoot, I'm here to talk about the Rotary Foundation, and I'm here to talk about the opportunity of using these projects to provide our clubs, the members of our clubs, with service opportunities, either directly or indirectly. The Rotary Foundation, as you know, when you contribute to the Rotary Foundation, those dollars, 50% of those dollars are, or really 75% of those dollars go out in global grants for water projects, for, again, for wells, for ClubFoot, for putting solar panels in places, for literacy projects around the world. So when we contribute that money, we are, this club or a hosting club in another country is eligible to draw on those dollars to pay for a Ponseti VTT team to come in. These grants run from anywhere from $35,000 to around $100,000. They're very low cost. And the impact is that when we get done training a doctor with a possible 20-year lifespan of that doctor, it comes down to $2.35 per patient of the cost of the patients that they will treat during their life. That $35,000 multiplies out in how many patients there, because each doctor will treat maybe 500 patients during their lifetime. And if you have 25 doctors at a location, 25 times that 500 tells you how many patients they can treat, and that just lowers the cost all the time and gives you a tremendous impact on your dollars. The other thing about this is we need to continue to raise awareness that there's an issue like this, just like there's cleft lip and cleft palate. We have that here in the United States, almost the same frequency as ClubFoot. We don't see it here in the United States because our surgeons recognize it, and have access to medical training and medical ability to address that. How many know the actor Stacy Keach? Okay, Stacy had cleft lip. And think about how his career, where he might be if he had not had surgery. He was lucky to be born here in the United States. Children in Honduras, Guatemala, many other countries don't have that. So that's why we have these missions that go there. Possible future needs. The biggest issue that we're talking about is how to promote what we do with the RAG for ClubFoot, what we do, how we promote and push out the Ponseti method, how we encourage Rotary districts around the world to consider asking us to come in, helping them train their physicians, train their nurse practitioners out in the rural areas to recognize and to get the children who are born with clubfoot into a major hospital like in Nairobi to be treated. Again, it's like a 5 or 6 week period of time they spend there in Nairobi, and then they're back home in their village, working with the braces and so forth. We need to identify organizations that are able to assist us in spreading the word and spreading the opportunity to use the Ponseti method. We don't have all the resources, we don't have all the knowledge. We are ourselves, the RAG right now as currently constituted is not in Africa, but we are hoping to bring on some African leaders in the Ponseti method to the RAG to help us expand that opportunity. We're also looking for women to be part of that. We only have 2 women right now on our board, and we're looking for more women to give us a better insight and give us a better representation of what is going on in the world and what their thoughts on how to promote the Ponseti method. So very quickly, if you look over on the right-hand column, cost per patient. In Brazil, we spent almost $194,000. We trained 50 doctors. The cost of each of those doctors was $300 to train them. They're going to treat 50,000 patients out of those doctors. That meant that $194,000, $3.87 per patient in the future. When was the last time you went to the doctor and only spent $3.87 and your life was changed? So you look at Colombia, $105,000 to train 30 doctors, $3.53. We spent $14,200 in Dominican Republic. We trained 8 doctors, and that's $1.78. Now, why are these numbers different? It's based upon the population of the country as to how many people live there and how many births are you going to have out of that population per year. And therefore, how many patients are you going to have per year out of those people, that population there. That's where the numbers sort of come from with the 50-30. Brazil is the largest country in South America. Brazil, China, India. India has a very large need for training. We have a chart that lists these, how many births and how many doctors are needed and how many live births we have with ClubFoot. So this gives you an idea. So you can see that we spent 193 in one country, we spent 14,000 in another country, 105, 79, and some of these, the one that we have right here from Kenya is $35,000. And we're going to impact probably about 80-some physicians out of that. So I think I'm just about done. Now I'm ready for some questions and answers. Hopefully I have answers. Yes, sir. Go ahead. You have a microphone we're going to run around?
Two questions, Chris. If an individual goes to a medical school here in the United States and they study orthopedics, is the Ponseti method part of the curriculum?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a great question. One of the challenges we face in some of these countries and why it has been slow in some of these countries, we have got to get the medical associations of those countries to be on board to recognize the Ponseti method as the way to treat clubfoot. In some countries, they don't know of the Ponseti method or very few people are aware of it and therefore they use surgery. But here in the United States, the Ponseti method is the agreed upon methodology of treating clubfoot.
Okay. And then the second question, the short one, is the World Health Organization involved in any way? Or
no, they are not. They are not, other than the fact that they have that information available to them. They help provide statistics around the world. They gather statistics. But no, they are not actively involved in promoting the Ponseti method or any really other methodology of cleft lip or cleft palate or whatever, because you have Iowa Most and you have Hope, you have the Smile Train and so forth. So they support these organizations verbally, but not financially or any other way. Yes.
Hi, I'm a retired pediatrician, and I can vouch that 50-some years ago in the late 60s in Iowa City, as a medical student, I got to go observe Dr. Ponseti in his clinic, and what a great guy he was, both handling the infants and their parents. So in Iowa City, it's been in medical training, at least recognizing it and knowing where to send them. And in the 40-some years I practiced here, I had several infants born with ClubFoot and always would refer them there, and the outcomes were always nothing but positive, and it's really also very, there's no discomfort to the children at all either. They'd come in for their checkups and we lay them on the exam table and they'd smile and bang their casts on the table and have a lot of fun. So I can only tell you what a great thing I think it is and how I think Rotary can really involve. I think we just in Iowa assumed in medicine that this was the way to do it for the last 50 years, and it's interesting that it's not worldwide at this point. It doesn't involve surgery or anything. And
Yeah, there's a tenotomy that they do on the Achilles
right.
tendon at the very end.
They do lengthen the Achilles
And
tendon.
that's to allow the foot to drop.
Right.
But you're correct, you know, and of course with Venazio, and I think with any orthopedist that works with a child, the temperament of the doctor to the child is so important, and it's just wonderful to see them smile as the foot is massaged and recast. So it's just marvelous to watch Marquende do that, Dr. Marquende.
So anything we could do to make this help children worldwide would be a great service, I think.
Thank you.
There's one over here.
Okay.
When our son Steve was born, his feet were pointed inward, and I thought he was going to need treatment. But the pediatrician took one look and said, no, he'll grow out of that. So is it easy to see if they're going to grow out of it or not?
Well, I think you definitely need to have an orthopedist look at it so they can understand exactly what they're looking at to see. The challenge is that they possibly might make a wrong decision, but hopefully not. But what we're having is, with this Kenya project, that is what's happening in rural areas, that the physician assistant is not recognizing the ClubFoot, as opposed to a case where they might grow out of it, such as, you know, being maybe just slightly pigeon-toed or something like that. And so recognition, training, observation, redundancies of that has to be provided. It's possible that not every situation that, like you were saying there, is going to be ClubFoot, and it may be just something that will stretch out and so forth with normal practice. But when it is ClubFoot, we need to hopefully have a physician that will recognize it and treat it accordingly. Great point. Thank you.
Is there ever an age you couldn't have this done? In other words, could an older person decide he wants to get his leg fixed, or can you still do that with an older person, or it have to be a baby?
It is much more difficult with an older individual, just because of the bone structure that has happened, the calcification that has happened. And, you know, the foot, very much like the hand, has multiple bones. And the calcification that happens between those bones as they grow older makes it much more difficult. It's like breaking glass, you know, and trying to put that glass back together. That's why when you saw that picture of that older child there, that's about almost at the maximum age where we can have some impact on the child. So it's much, and that's why surgery often happens. And in the old days, where surgery was happening on these children, was the fact that a child continues to grow, the foot continues to grow, and then as the child gets older and the foot grows, you have to go back in sometimes with multiple surgeries to make the physical corrections as the body continues to change. With the Ponseti method, with manipulation, the muscles, the tendons are all stretched and all put in so that the foot grows out in a normal and isn't being locked up with calcification and skeletal muscle structure issues. Yes, please.
Who are the people that go in and do this training? Are they medical people or
Yes.
are they people like the rest of us here?
No. Thank you. That's a great question. No. The VTT, the vocational training team, is physicians and a technician that goes along to be the person that helps Dr. McQuendy. Dr. McQuendy has been the primary person for the ones that are happening out of Iowa. And the grants that you saw there on the map, South America, those have all been done by Dr. McQuendy. And now a team is coming out of Brazil. We have a physician who is in Brazil who was a student of Marquende's and who is now helping with the training of more doctors in South and Central America. Yes, sir.
Chris, thank you for a very informative program. Do you know why this condition happens?
Great question. We don't. We assume it's genetic. But money has not, this is like an infant drug issue. 1 out of 750 births is not a high enough number for getting medical research to do the genetic mapping. And they have to figure out how to do the mapping in order to come up with it, because it doesn't appear to be hereditary necessarily, but there is a genetic issue to it. And we're hoping that we can find it and figure out, is there a way to see it ahead of time with our mothers and fathers to figure out, if a child is going to be born, will it have clubfoot, let alone like cleft lip and cleft palate are the same issues that come along the same line. That is part of the mapping that we don't really know. Occasionally there are multiple births in a family where they have clubfoot, and which would definitely seem to suggest that there's a genetic predisposition to it, but we don't know where the gene is. We don't know if it's what side of the family it comes down, if it skips generations, etc. So it's very complex. We're hoping to get an answer at some point in time. But I think the money that is being spent now on clubfoot is more in the treatment of versus the discovery of why. But it's a great question. We hope that maybe at some point in time, science will take it on, like they did, with the virus, that we had coronavirus coming up with a cure for something. Any more questions?
Are you limited to being able to do this with just orthopedists, or can you train PAs and nurse practitioners to do this?
Okay. The focus of this process right now is we train the orthopedists in it, then they train their teams. So we start at the top, so to speak, of the food chain. The people who have the most authority, the people who have the greatest possibility of having an impact on decision making as to who will be trained, then they train their technicians. So where we want to go with is, one, first of all, getting back to like the Kenya project, recognizing that we have a child with clubfoot and then getting it to a person who is trained in the Ponseti method. But almost always, the orthopedic surgeon is the person who's at the top, who has the authority, has the ability to drive the Ponseti method through the medical community where they reside. So if we could have more people, that would be good, but yet we need to have somebody who understands the total medical concept of what we're doing here.
For future trainings, are there natural partnerships that could be found with communities that we've also done well projects with, or do the population centers not allow for that?
That's a great question. When we, with any program, and let's cite the well project that we have in Tanzania, you have to work with the government. That's the primary thing. Then once the government is on your side, then you have to drill that down, and you have to find the sponsors to support it. Now, again, with the Kenya project, just a perfect example, and we have not gone into Africa for a couple reasons. One, Dr. McQuendy doesn't have contacts there, and we're driven in part by where his skill set is and his And of course, he speaks Spanish, which gives us entree to all of Central and South America. But also, there's other NGOs that are doing the Ponseti methodology, and they have now reached out to Rotary. And that's part of what we're going to is how can Rotary become engaged in Africa, for instance, or in Asia, or in India? Now, if we're going to spend money, your money, our money, from the foundation on supporting these Ponseti VTTs, there has to be a Rotary connection at the end point. There has to be a Rotary district, there has to be a Rotary club, there has to be Rotarians who are going to monitor and support and host the VTT when we get there, who are going to be responsible to continue the project after the VTT leaves. The NGOs, we think, we're going to find out, have the ability to reach out, as we have done in other countries in Central and South America, to find Rotarians who want to do this sort of project. Again, this is low cost, low impact. Yes, these countries have limited resource as opposed to us. And by the way, I want to thank every Rotary Club in our district. We raise over $400,000 almost every year for the past 20-some years. And we spend that money very wisely. We have a tremendous rating with the Rotary Foundation as to how we spend our money. And we do great things with that money. But we have limited resources ourselves. So we are reaching out to other districts in the United States and in Europe to participate in these grants in South and Central America. And we're going to, if this works with Kenya, we're going to start working with Africa and maybe subcontinent of India and Asia and so forth because of that, yes.
You haven't mentioned working in Europe at all. Do they have their own system that's different?
That's a great question. Okay, the question is, I haven't discussed Europe. And underdeveloped, less developed, poor nations are the ones which have the greatest challenge with the Ponseti method because of the medical training and of what's happening in more developed countries like the United States or Europe, Canada, England, France, Northern Europe, even Middle East countries have greater medical capabilities, and they are aware and use in many places the Ponseti method. We are going to places to where they are underserved. And again, the underserving comes from the fact that they don't have, and of course we're seeing the challenge here in Iowa, for instance, they don't have all these community hospitals spread across our country in rural areas. They have centralized medicine in major cities, and we need to help them bring their patients where the customer is, the clients are. We need to identify them and bring them in. Where in Europe, as we're here in the United States, if you have a child, your child was born, didn't have it, but maybe Lori Millers, who was born down in Leon, Decatur County, Leon, Iowa, got their child treated in Des Moines by a Ponseti method trained doctor. So that's where we're going. So yes, Europe has it just like we do, but they have the Ponseti method going for them. So thank you. That's a great question. I appreciate the opportunity. Please give generously to the Rotary Foundation. If you see a flyer, so to speak, come out about an opportunity to participate in a VTT for the Ponseti method, be it in Central, South America, or Africa, please raise your hand and get in touch with us and say, we want to participate. These are low impact, low cost opportunities to provide great service to the people of the world. Thank you.
Hold on, don't go anywhere, Chris. I think you had said in your slide that it was roughly $3 per patient? Approximately, okay. Well, excuse me, last week we raised roughly $300 in the brag bucket, and I would like our club, I'd like to entertain a motion to take those $300 and earmark them specifically for your organization, the RAG for ClubFoot, and help you on your way to accomplishing your goals. So I would love to entertain a motion. So move second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you again. And Kent. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris, again, for a very moving and educational presentation today. Before you go, we would love to get your autograph on the back of a book. We're sponsors of Raising Readers here in Story County, and this will be given to a child at their 2-year well child check. So make sure you get that before you go. Please join us next week. We'll be online as we welcome Diane Burt to highlight the Ames Interfaith Refugee Alliance. And thought for the day from Carl Jung: medicines cure diseases, but only doctors can cure patients. And with that, let's please stand and if you join me as we recite the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?